From the beautiful Finger Lakes region of upstate New York, this is the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. We take questions from anyone in the dental profession and discuss what it takes to win not only in dentistry, but in life. Business, leadership, relationships, parenting, health and wellness, money management, nothing is off limits on the Dental Lighthouse Podcast. I'm Jason Tenori, your host, and have over 20 years of experience to pull from. Learn from my mistakes and let me help you collapse time so you can become the best version of yourself. Yo, welcome back. Dr. Jason here, Dental Lighthouse Podcast, and I'm going to share with you guys today the first 15, 20 minutes of one of our group coaching calls that we did, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago. And, you know, I normally wouldn't share the content of these group coaching calls because, I totally respect the privacy and the conversations that we have inside the group. They're very delicate. They're very nuanced. But this one started off with me unpacking what we're calling the 4 Futures framework. And I just wanted to give you some context on that. And then, we'll roll into the recording. But basically, the 4 Futures concept is this concept where ideally every single day you dedicate a little bit of time and energy to 4 specific parts in your life. And within the context of the way we consider the 4 Futures, those 4 things or those 4 compartments of your life are mind, meaning, muscle, and money. And I'll unpack this in the actual recording, but just for your own referencing, mind has to deal with obviously your mind. And so what are you doing on a regular basis that's enhancing your mind? It could be reading a few pages from a book. It could be meditation. It could be box breathing. It could be anything that's ultimately benefiting your mind. The second one, meaning, which is more of a relationship quadrant or relationship component. You know, what are you doing in your life to enhance the meaning of your life or enhance the relationships of your life? So it could be a love bomb to someone. It could be taking a walk with someone. It could be spending intimate time with your spouse. It could be having a really great one-on-one conversation with one of your direct reports. The third quadrant is muscle or health. And in that quadrant, what are you doing to check that box? It could be a good workout, could be going for a run, could be getting, X amount of steps in per day. It could be a recovery-based task. It could be a nutrition-based task like meal prepping or something like that. And then the final one is money. So what are you doing today to enhance your life financially? And it could be something work-related like, poring over a profit and loss statement. It could be working on a system or an SOP in an effort to make your business better. It could be personal. And in this recording, I talk a little bit about what I decided to dedicate some time to from a personal financial perspective, just to become a better version of myself. So I would strongly encourage you to listen to this recording. I would strongly encourage you to adopt some level of the 4 Futures framework. You can reach out if you want to know even more specifics about how I do it. As you know, my contact information is on thedentallighthouse.com. You can text me or email me. But it's a really, really good way to just grab some control of your life. And it can be done in 5 minutes a day. And then as you start to really embrace it and unpack it, you get to the point where you could be spending a little bit more time every day on it. So check it out. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. Talk to you guys later. I sometimes forget things, or sometimes I assume that just because I'm doing it, everyone else is doing it. And in talking to a couple people in our group after or throughout the weekend, I came to the realization that that's not the case. And specifically with this concept of the 4 Futures. So for those of you guys that don't know, um, there's different ways to describe this, but the four futures concept is looking at four distinct parts of your life. Um, in our world, we use four futures that start with the letter M, just to keep it simple. So it's mind, muscle, meaning, and money, and committing every day to doing something in that quadrant that is going to benefit you or enhance your mind, muscle, meaning, or um, money. And from a mind perspective, we're talking more about consuming maybe a book, or it could be meditation, it could be box breathing, just something that's helping either settle or enhance your mind. From a muscle perspective, which is traditionally the one that most of us have no problem checking off, it could be a workout, it could be meal prep, it could be taking a walk, it could be sauna, it could be cold plunge, whatever is important to you in terms of enhancing um, your your body, your muscle, your recovery, stuff like that. Meaning is traditionally relationship driven. So it's connecting with your spouse, with your kids, with a key employee at work, one of your direct reports. Maybe it's reaching out to your dad or your mom who you haven't talked to in a long time. And then money is traditionally the quadrant that is focused on either work, if you're a business owner, or if you're in a lead position, it could be a personal budget, spending some time in your personal budget. It could be reviewing your bank accounts to make sure that you're not getting frivolously charged for things. It could be, um, a last will and testament. It could be um, anything that's going to ultimately help you develop wealth and or reduce debt, save money, invest, stuff like that. So I should say always, for the last 10 years, this framework has been super, super important to me. And you almost play a game with yourself of how can I get through these four futures um, as early as possible throughout the day. And I traditionally try to make sure that I have all of these knocked off by usually 8 o'clock in the morning. And it's not difficult. And then you can put your own rules around your own for future framework. But for me, I'm dedicating a minimum of 15 minutes per quadrant per day. And um, the reason that I actually put a timestamp to it is because I was actually fooling myself. I shouldn't say fooling myself. I was rushing through them just to get them done, right? So, for example, for the relationship or meaning quadrant, I would say, okay, I'm going to shoot out a love bomb to Cody, and boom, check the box, and that's good. Don't get me wrong. But when I started to sit back and not try to rush through it, when I started to sit back and say, okay, I have 15 minutes today that I'm going to spend on the meaning quadrant, I started writing letters. I started composing thank you cards. Um, I started to do things that were, in my opinion, more impactful than a quick text message. So it's a you do you thing. If you've never done anything like this before, then a love bomb is a great way to check the meaning box. Um, Doing a minute of box breathing is a great way to check the mind box, or reading an excerpt from Daily Stoic. But if you're already doing some of these things already, then I would ask you to consider perhaps assigning more time to each one of the quadrants. Because because I've done that over the last year, um, it's really, really been significantly more impactful than rushing to get through it. So depending on where you're at in your journey, um, it might be something to consider. I'm curious, because I know we have a high level group here. Is anyone here routinely using this framework? And if so, just would love for you to share with the group if it's a similar framework, what you're currently doing on a regular basis to check these boxes. Just would love to hear what your thoughts are.
I think for us, we actually rolled this at our yearly meeting in 2023 to our
Mm,
team. Dr. Bowles ended up purchasing the actual journals for each and every one of our team members. And we all kind of broke down one quadrant of the four futures and how it just gave some tips and tricks of what we can do to impact that, and then threw it back to our team to challenge them for the 2024 year, how they can be a better version of themselves. And when they bring a better version of themselves to the office, it means a better office overall. I think for myself personally, it kind of really it opened up my own eyes about where I was neglecting some of these categories throughout my life, and how I can just kind of recenter and put more time and energy into each one of them, and how it became a little bit more impactful, especially with the meaning side of my life. I put a lot of my focus throughout my career just really on the business side, the money, and really just the money, just trying to, grow myself, be a better, provider, not realizing I was leaving behind three other sections of my life that I needed to start addressing now that, especially because I'm getting older. You don't want just to leave that type of legacy when you do pass on.
yeah, that super powerful. And like we've talked about the last couple of calls about office managers, when we call someone an office manager, that's really an unfair title, or we don't manage the expectations, and we get pissed when all they're doing is task management and they're not leading, because we just assume we're hiring an office manager, they're also going to lead, right? And then it's actually our fault for not being crystal clear. And what you come to realize is office managers typically default to what they know or what they're good at, right? And I, to your point, Pete, I found the same thing with the four futures, right? It was easy for me to, within 30 seconds, check some of these boxes and then go spend 2 hours in the gym, right? Because that's just like where I live. That's like my thing, right? But as soon as I started realizing that I'm one-sided or I'm lopsided, and I started dedicating specifically more time to the other three quadrants, a whole nother world started to open up for me. And I referenced this for 15 minutes per quadrant. One of the reasons that's been so powerful for me is if you can truly work on something for 15 minutes, after a couple weeks, like you've made a shit ton of progress. So I remember 2 years specifically, and sometimes us as dentists, and again, maybe I'm just portraying my own shortcomings on you. Um, we tend to make good incomes. And because of that, at least me personally, I was not nearly as dialed in at home from a budgetary perspective as I am at work. Like you ask me any type of overhead line item on any of my practices, and boom, I can give it to you within the second decimal point. But at home, money was rolling in. We were just spending it. I wasn't nearly as dialed in. So one of the first things I decided to do was really try to treat my home budget similar to what we do from an office perspective. So I would dedicate 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. And wouldn't you know, after a month, I was literally starting to see like $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 more a month, like in the account, because I was getting rid of these old subscriptions. I was refinancing some debt that was at higher interest rates. And I was like, well, why haven't I refinanced this before? Oh, I would pay it off. Um, only, and all because I decided to pay attention to it. I decided to spend time on it. So wherever your deficit is, for me, it was all quadrants but muscle. Um, Once you finally dedicate allocated time to it, it's just amazing the progress that we can make if we stick to it. So I appreciate that perspective, Pete. Anyone else use this framework or something similar and want to share some successes or some failures that you've had with it?
Yeah, so I would say this year, 2025, has been a lot of like focusing on myself. I think I put a lot of energy in the money, right? Just as business, and I coming into this new year just having a mindset of like what can I do to stay more connected with the kids or like with me personally. So I do have it. I try to use it every day. I actually have it right here. And I do try to write into it. But for me, what I've noticed is that I think unless you kind of like write it down, you really don't know what you do throughout the day, right? And the day passes, and then it's like, well, what did I even get done? So this has allowed me to be really intentional about my time versus, okay, like I'm just going to go in the day and just do whatever. And then all of a sudden it's the end of the day and I'm like, well, I didn't even get what I needed done. But on top of that, I think just being really mindful about my mind and my meaning, I feel like those two have been lacking most of since we started the business because it's always like go, go, go. So in the morning, I have a whole morning routine that I'm sticking to for the most part. And I've noticed whenever I do my morning routine, I'm just in a better mood, right? I start the day more positive, and then the whole day kind of trickles like that. But when I am rushing because I woke up late or whatever, I can see myself not as happy or like more frustrated, and then that trickles down to our team members, which is not fair for them. But just being more mindful and writing it down has made a big difference. Instead of just saying like, yeah, I meditate every day, and then when you meditate, I'm thinking about 100 other things. But being
Right.
more mindful, like when I meditate, what have I gotten there, and writing in my journal, versus
Yeah.
just listening to it and then thinking about the 10 things I have to do later on. But I think it's really cool just having this framework. DSI actually helps me understand how to use it because I saw the check boxes and I didn't understand like how to actually use it until it's like, well, did I get to it? And then I check it off. But before I was like, well, what does it mean? So I just skipped that section. So at least I'm incorporating that now. But starting somewhere is better than nothing. But yeah, it's been really good. And I think it's one of those things you don't know until you do it. And then you're like, why haven't I done this? Kind of
Yeah.
thing.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. I and it's funny you had referenced like checking the boxes. So the engineer in me, the analytic in me needed that. And I'll share I don't use that journal as much anymore. But I'll share in the group what I use. But to your point, I'm always competing against myself. And it's rare that I'm, 28 for 28 in a given week, 7 times 4. But if I fall to like 23 out of 28 one week, and as I'm doing my Sunday night audit, you bet your ass that like I'm thinking to myself, I am getting 25 this week. There is no way that I am not getting 25, right? And to your point, it just kind of exponentially snowballs, and it makes you feel better. Your point about morning routines is so spot on. I know some people don't fully believe in morning routines, and I'm not here to sell you on my morning routine versus your morning routine and all that stuff. But I do know that if I wake up late, and I don't do the basic things that I love to do every morning, to your point, the day is just shit, and it's not nearly as productive as it could be. And the question then becomes, well, why did I wake up late? And at least for me, 99% of the time, I'm tracking it back to the night before, right? It's like when we get talked into one more drink, when we get talked into one more episode on Netflix, when we get talked into like one more commitment. And then again, for me, I wake up very, very early. So if my bedtime goes from say 8:30 to like 9:30, even that hour difference, like I'm no longer waking up at 4:30, and just that I can never catch up. It's like when you're working clinically and you're a half hour behind first patient of the day, you just can never catch up, right? Like that's how I feel when I sleep in or when I can't have my full morning routine. The whole day just feels like icky to me. So I will have that conversation with myself when I'm about to pour that bourbon, be like, do I really want to feel icky tomorrow? And then like I'm having this conversation with myself about should I put away the bottle and go to bed, or should I stop watching this show? This next season will be here tomorrow. I can always start it tomorrow. Um, That's cool. Anyone else have any contributions on how they use the four futures, or if they've used it and struggled, or anything like that?
Um, I've tried it, and I think just listening to all of you guys, I don't think there's ever been a week where I've got even close to 5 consecutive days with this. So I consider myself a pretty routine. I like routines, but I'm a terrible person to at sticking out with one thing and one thing only. And I think a perfect example is I get the journal from DSI, and I'll probably try to combine the Four Futures journal with the Miracle Morning with a gratitude journal app on my phone, and nothing lasts more than 2 days. So
Yeah.
So I think this probably an area that I struggle, and I have a copy of that Savor acronym thing for Miracle Morning inside of the Four Futures journal, but I think I still have the very first journal that I ever received that's hasn't been completed yet. So anytime I see anyone like you guys, like Winston is one guy I know who's been really good at being consistent with this. I envy. So would love to get a crack at it more. I've tried this with my office too. So for some of the, our last week's topic of check-ins and reviews, this was part of my check-ins with the team, with the core values and the four futures, which really led to meaningful conversations with a lot of them. And I think it was really good just before COVID, and then a year or so after. I think it's like I said, I think I got off that wagon through distraction. So, always good reminder.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like meditation, where when Linda just referenced, like at least the way I was taught to meditate is, quote unquote, emptying your mind, or whatever phrase you want to use. And when you recognize that you've drifted off, that's a win, right? So it's not like penalizing yourself because fuck, I'm thinking about work again. It's like, oh, I'm thinking about work. Let me bring it back to center. Let me recenter myself. And what you just described, I think, is a great similarity to that, in the sense that, you could beat yourself up for not doing it, or you could say, okay, I'm recognizing that I need to get better. So here we go, right? Like let's just start it again. Thank you. That wraps up another episode of the Dental Lighthouse podcast. You have a choice today. Choose to be a lighthouse. Lighthouses are powerful and steadfast. They are beacons of light for others to reference when life gets turbulent. Go out into the world today and become a lighthouse for someone. Give more than you get. True joy comes from serving others. Start today. I'm Jason Tenori, your host. Thank you for listening to the Dental Lighthouse podcast. For more information, podcast show notes, or links to anything that we have discussed today, please check out our website, thedentallighthouse.com. We would love to hear from you. If you would like to get on the show, please email us at podcast@thedentallighthouse.com.